Greetings, students of the BUSN 1360 Software Apps for Business class. Do you want to make a perfect score on the Excel Chapter 4 grader? Well, I made a perfect score, and I thought that you might want to know some of the tips and tricks on how to do that. So I thought we'd walk through that together. Now, I want to tell you how to make 100% on all of our chapters. The first and most important thing is that you want to work the assignments in order, and that does require that you plan your time. As soon as you can, you want to do the quiz, the chapter quiz, because that's going to introduce you to just a couple of the key words that you can look up in your book. Remember, your ebook is searchable. We've talked about that. And so you can search for words, find out that they're important, and then when you read those little parts of the book, it'll start to absorb that, okay, I need to pay attention to this, I need to know how to do this, and you'll start to be introduced into really key concepts. The next thing you want to do is the simulator, because that's going to guide your hand through the process, and you're going to see those same terms introduced in the quiz. You're going to see those again in the simulator, but it's going to be showing you the how-to. It's guided. I mean, it's just perfect in that way. Then in the grader, as you well know, you're going to have to do it yourself, but you're building on that first introduction in the quiz and that demonstration, that guided demonstration in the simulator. Okay? Now, one extra thing with the ebook, I don't know if you have been clicking on those links. You know, on the first page of the chapter, you can see what's covered in the chapter. You can click on links to go directly to those things. And one of the things that you might be skipping over is those hands-on exercises. That would be a mistake, because the hands-on links have videos. Yes, there's written out steps where they talk you through doing the process, but the videos are fantastic, and they're going to show you how to do key things that you're then going to have to do in the grader. So highly encourage these hands-on links, and we're going to look at all this stuff. Now, I'm going straight to the quiz question because I wanted to use this as an example. It said, which of the following is a fully qualified structured reference? And you might be saying, what? Right? What is a fully qualified, structured reference, right? Well, let's break that down because we need to find out more about that. And when you look at these A, B, C, D options, you might look at it and say, I have never seen so much foreign language in my life. And you may think that you don't even know what it means, but I bet you do when you really start to look at it. First of all, you've learned in the earlier chapters and in my previous one of my previous videos that this equal sign simply means you're activating the math mode, right? So it's an equation, it's a formula. All formulas start with an equal sign, and what that does is that just tells Excel, I'm not typing this for display purposes. I actually want you to calculate it. I want you to use that adding machine feature that you have, and that's what that equal sign turns on. Now, some of these, yes, I agree. You're kind of like, what is going on here? But you're going to start to understand. I mean, you know minus signs, right? You know that just means subtract. But you're going to start to understand some of these symbols, and we're going to look for those as we look into the book. Now, I'm going to come back because when I was looking at your grader, remember we said do the quiz, do the simulator, then do the grader. When I was looking at the grader, I noticed a very similar question. Look at that. It's similar, but it's a little different, isn't it? Create an unqualified structured reference, right? Now, in that previous, let me actually go back. This was a fully qualified structured reference. And if you went to your book and you searched the ebook, you might have found qualified. But by the time you get to the grader, if you searched for unqualified, maybe you found it, and that's good if you did. But sometimes it's difficult for the search engines in lots of browsers and things to find the negative or the opposite of a word. So if you don't find unqualified, you might want to search for qualified. Okay, so I'm looking again for a qualified structured reference. And now I kind of know I've got two things I need to know. I need to know that qualified and I need to know unqualified. So I looked in the book. This is in the ebook, and this is in this actually looks like it's in chapter 3. So I use my search feature, right? It says hands-on exercises 3. Um, this is the part I'm going to look for, creating structured references in formulas. And we're going to look in the book in a moment to find this. I just thought it'd be easier to have it on the slide. So it says here, as I read through this paragraph, it kind of reminds me of things I already know, and that's nice. That's a good pat on the back. I know how to do the sum function. Of course, there's math mode and then functions, and all functions have parentheses. I know how to, write a formula. I'm doing math, so I have that equal sign, and I know this is a relative reference. In other words, if I were to copy this formula, we may see this cell change. It might increase as I copy it down from H6 to H7 to H8. I know this is an absolute reference because that's what those dollar signs mean. I know this asterisk here is multiply, right? This times that. The absolute reference, by the way, means even if I copy this formula, this cell will absolutely stay on B3, whereas this one might change as I copy it. So cell references, it says, are very important. And then as we continue on, it says an advantage to Excel tables. So we're talking very specifically about the table function, which is what we're studying in chapter 4, is that they use structured references. There we are again, structured references, to clearly indicate the type of data that's being used. So it tells us now a structured reference is a tag. I don't really get that. A tag or the use of a table element. Well, if I'm working with tables, an element is just something in the table, such as a field heading. So let's just go back for a minute. If I have a column in my table called purchase price or down payment or sales, then wouldn't that be a field, the name of a column in my table? Here are all the sales numbers. Here are all the down payment numbers. Here are all the purchase prices. And they might be all listed. So I think this is what they're talking about here. A structured reference is a tag or the use of a table element, such as a field heading, as a reference in a formula. Okay, so it's just a way of looking at one of those columns, which we're going to call fields, one of those fields in the table. Now they have a picture of it, and I'm going to show you that in a minute, but I want to read on, because right below the picture there was this paragraph where we're talking about that unqualified reference. And remember, we're going to need to know that for the grader. Well, when creating a formula in a table using structured references, which we know simply means field names, just means a field name from our table, field headings are set off by brackets. And they're showing us the brackets here. Those are the square ones. Parentheses are round. There's grace brackets that have the little, they're kind of more fancy. But the square bracket, that is how Excel is going to understand that we have a field or a column in our table called amount or down pay. Okay? Do you start to see this? That this is saying take the value in the amount column and subtract the value in the down pay column. Okay. The use of field headings without row references, okay, in a structured formula is called an unqualified reference. Now let's just think about this for a minute. The use of field headings, and we're good with that, right? We've already learned that when we use field headings, let's go back, that's a structured reference, is simply using a field heading. That's a structured reference. But now Now we're continuing, we're building on that knowledge. The use of field headings without the row. So remember, the field identifies everything listed in a column. It, all the way from, underneath, let's say column H or G or something, and it just lists everything down. That's the column. But which specific value in that column are we talking about? Well, we don't really identify that necessarily. We're going to let Excel figure that out. But when we omit that row reference, it's unqualified. I mean, that kind of think of that. What is qualified? Qualified means there's a very specific criteria. And if you're qualified, you fit the criteria, right? So that criteria is what is the row in that column. But if we don't tell it, then it doesn't fit a specific row criteria. So it's unqualified. It's an unqualified reference. It is simply a field heading, and that's it. That means it's structured because it's a field heading, but we don't tell it what row, so it's unqualified. Got it? We're gonna see it in action here. Now, let's read just a little bit more, because there was a third term. There was fully qualified, right? Oh my goodness. Well, this is some kind of dense reading, but let's just break this down. It says you can also use a semi-selection process. Well, whenever you see a word like semi, quasi, half and half, it means partial, right? How are you doing? I'm semi-okay, right? I'm half okay, right? So it says you can also use a kind of sort of half selection process to create a formula. As you click cells to enter a formula in a table, Excel builds a formula like this. Now, a minute ago, this exact same formula was written, but we did not have this little like email symbol, right? We didn't have that @ sign. So that's because there's something key that they said here. They said when you click a cell. They didn't say when you click a column or a whole bunch of cells. They said a very specific cell. And that means it knows the row and the column. We would normally refer to a cell as something like A1, B3, right? W47. Those would be cell names. But when we're working with tables, we don't talk about the cells anymore. We talk about the columns. So this is talking about a very specific cell inside of the amount column and a very specific cell inside the down pay column in that field. Now, I don't want you to get hung up in that. I wanted to give you that big picture so that you know this is the semi-selection and what it is. But for now, don't get caught up in that, especially if you're kind of new and you're beginning. Just let that wash over you, okay? So that you just know that that is inside of a table, the way that Excel would understand how to refer to a specific cell. But don't stress on that. It says, excuse me, if you use, so where the @ symbol indicates a current row. All right, if you use the semi-selection process, we're going to go down there in a minute. If you use the semi-selection process to create a formula outside of the table, okay, the formula includes the table and field names. So now we're not even doing math inside of our table. We are someplace else on our spreadsheet, and we're referring to, we might have 4 tables on one worksheet, might have a ton of tables. Well, in that case, Excel will have to know where the table name goes. So table name, square brackets, because I'm going to talk about my columns. But if I'm going to talk about a specific cell in the column, then I'm going to add this symbol. So think about how we have built up. I'm going to go back. We started out and we said, look, if we make a table and we have names at the top of the columns of those tables, we're going to call those column labels fields. In those fields, we're going to put in square brackets. So we want each amount to be subtracted, subtract down pay from each amount, right? Because we're in our table. excuse me, if we wanted to refer to a very specific row in our table, we would add the @ sign. If we have lots of tables or we're working outside of our table, then we might even want to include the table name, and that would just simply be put in front. Now, you can type these things, but honestly, Excel often tends to add those things for you. So don't stress, just kind of say, okay, table, here's my field. I'm talking about a specific row, so it would add in that and sign. Okay, well, let's go back to the quiz question. And let's look at some of this data again. Well, I see an equal sign here, but this, I don't know what this is. I don't think this is fully qualified structured because it does not appear to use any of those special symbols that I learned about that we use in tables. It could be a named range, but let's not get into that. Well, this one looks a little better. It's got square brackets around the field names. So is it fully qualified? Is it fully? It might be structured because it's a field heading, so it's starting to look structured. Well, now I see this one. Now, I don't remember anything following the square brackets. I remember that we had something in front of the square bracket, like a table name. But we did not put the table name in square brackets. The table name just was there, followed by the field name, which was in square brackets. And if we were referring to a specific row in the field name, then we would have an @ sign, which would make it fully qualified structured reference. What a neat thing to know. And if it was unqualified, because that was fully qualified, if it was unqualified, what does that mean again? This was structured. We learned about field names. If it was unqualified, the use of field headings without row references means there is no row criteria. So if there's no row criteria, then it is unqualified to the row. Okay, see how this has no row references? Wow, you guys are smart. Woo! Getting a workout. You see why I took the time to go through this? I want you to understand the instructions. Here's that picture. And I took the picture and I blew up this little piece of it so that hopefully you can see it better in the video. Now this is kind of interesting. Would you say that this is qualified or unqualified or semi-qualified? It looks kind of semi-qualified to me, and that's actually what they're telling you. Semi-selection structured reference, so a selection. Okay, I'm going to let you, I don't want you to stress over building these formulas because you do not have to be the master of these things to complete this assignment. You're just putting your big toe into the water, and some people who have a bigger foundation will be able to process and absorb more of this, and you've got the hands-on exercise video and you have things you can walk through in the textbook. Okay, for now I don't want to stress anybody. I do want to show you one more thing though. This is a list of the tasks from the simulator. I thought I had that on here, but I guess not. This is a list of tasks from the simulator. And I'm pointing this out to you because I want you to see that the quiz questions and you're going to see demonstrated some of those same key things, but even more of them in the simulator. And these 3 tasks from the simulator create a custom sort, add a total row, use a formula in conditional formatting. You're going to see these again in the grader. So by completing the simulator, don't just click, click, click. If you are mindlessly clicking, you're going to miss the deep knowledge. Okay, so you do have to push back and try to say to yourself, now what just happened? What did I just do there? Because you're learning. Right? And it's okay that learning is can be tough, right? The first time you have to run 5 miles, it's tough, right? So, give yourself that time to build up and to practice with these. That's one reason I let you go in and out of the quizzes and the simulators in accordance with the syllabus. And this video may be used, so make sure you are maybe reused. So make sure for whatever semester you're watching this video that you are aware of the policies in the syllabus and that you use all those attempts. I see people take one attempt at the quiz, and folks, the questions are repeated. So you should be getting 100%, right? Make time to practice in the simulator. But this one's a biggie. But all of these you're going to see again, so you want to know how to do them. Alrighty. So for example, here is that conditional formatting. This was that task. It says create a new conditional formatting rule that uses a formula to determine which cells in this range to format, and it gives you this formula. And you might look at that formula and you might say, oh my God, right? Oh my God. But you don't have to, because the learning aids, and remember the practice under learning aids, that will walk you through it. Now, this particular formula is demonstrated in the hands-on video. So you want to watch those hands-on video because, folks, this type of formula, different values, but same type of formula, is going to be used in the grader. So we have to have this knowledge. This is critical. So let's talk about this function so that you understand it. The AND function might be something that you're not familiar with, but if we start to look at it, it's just a function, and you're going to see it in the same way that you see the payment function that you've already used, for example, or the sum function. Okay, all mathematical formulas start with that equal sign, because that tells Excel, I don't want to see this in the cell. I want you to do this and give me the results. So I got to turn on that calculator. That's the equal sign. Then somebody has to tell us what the function is. None of us are magical. We don't know what those words are until somebody tells us. And so somebody has told us that the name of this function is AND. And when you think about the word AND, this and that. Well, both Fred and Harry are going to the store. That means they're both going. That means both things are true. Fred is going to the store and Harry is going to the store. If it was one or the other, we would say or. Either Fred or Harry is going to the store, but not both. Nope, we didn't say that. We said Fred and Harry. Okay? Look inside the parentheses, because all functions have parentheses. Starts with an equal. Here's our function and no space, and all functions have parentheses. Now, inside, I know there's a lot going on, but I'm not even looking at all of that. The only thing I'm looking for is this comma. Because when I see a comma, anytime I see a comma inside of parentheses, this is always true. It means there's a piece to the left of the comma and the piece to the right. Sometimes you'll see lots of commas. Harry, comma, Fred, comma, Mary, comma, Sue, comma, are going to the store. They are all going to the store. They're all pieces of who is going to the store. We call that arguments. This is an argument, and this is an argument. Just some Excel terms there for you so you start to kind of get that down. Well, in the case of this AND function, the first argument and the second argument must be true. Whenever you set this up, that is what you are saying. You basically want to know, when is this and that true? I need for the value in cell C6 to equal Sebastian. And I need the value in K6 to be greater than 5,000. I need both those two things to be true. Okay. When this conditional formatting sees that, it'll change the color. That's what conditional formatting means. It means change the color. But what we're looking at is how does this function work? And Excel understands that when it sees equal, that it goes into its math mode, it sees a function and it says, okay, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to say this and that. So when both Sebastian and K6 is greater than 5,000, then I will apply your formatting. That's what it's going to do. Okay, so I'm going to learn that in the simulator and in my book, right? Possibly in the quiz as well. Okay, folks, if you think this stuff isn't related, here it is again. This is straight from the quiz. If you would like to set a conditional formatting rule based on this function, and if you did the quiz first, right, then you will already start to look this, figure this out, and it's in the videos that are in your book. It's in those hands-on videos, and you'll see this. So you'll start to look it up, and this is just going to deepen that learning. Okay, so let's apply what we know. If you would like to set conditional formatting rule based on the function, which formatting type is needed? Well, first of all, let's just look at this. I don't know what this straight line here is for. That's it's their cursor flashing is what I think is going on, and it is confusing, and I apologize. That just is an equal sign. Equals and, so that means turn on your math, and we're using the function and. And so what's inside these parentheses? Well, I've got one thing, comma, two things. So I need this, G6 to equal finance, and H7 to be less than 7,000. I'll point out one more thing. Did you notice the quotes around finance, the word finance? And did you also notice the quotes around the word Sebastian? Have you ever used air quotes? You say something like, he said, and you hold up your fingers and you do the little air quotes. He said, it's all good. And so what you mean when you hold up those air quotes is, this is exactly what he said. Right? This is exactly. So you put the quotes around it. Well, what you're telling Excel is that this is exactly the value that someone spoke, right? It's not the same as a number. So the numbers do not go inside of quotes. But when you have a value like the word finance, G6, the word is, quote, air quotes, finance. Or in C6, the word is Sebastian, quotes. So whenever it is a word value, you must put quotes around it. Well, when you watch the video for the hands-on exercises, you are going to see the answer to this question. So they actually do this in your book. So conditional formatting, make sure you go through that, and you get to see it in the simulator. So all of these things work together. So if you miss it in the quiz and you're just having a hard time understanding it, then maybe go on to the simulator and then come back to the quiz, right? Search your book. They all work together. Okay. This is a screenshot. In other words, I captured the screen from the video, the hands-on video that I'm talking to you about, and it answers the question because it goes into the formatting and it picks a new formatting rule, and it puts in that condition for Sebastian. See what I'm saying here, that something's been highlighted and selected? Okay. Yeah, and there's just that formula again. All right, so you're ready to do some work now that we have our foundation laid, and hopefully you are seeing how important it is to lay that foundation. Now, I have already taken the liberty of downloading my files, and I have opened the instructions, and I have those ready here. But also very important, they provided me a picture, and that is such a great thing. Now, it might be a little scary as you look at the picture, but just let it kind of wash over you, because you can come back and check these things, and see if it matches the picture a little later on. I see some things like there's a blue line between Denver and Memphis. I see some formatting. I see some, red. This looks like it could be conditional formatting. So Okay, so I kind of see what's going on there. Well, let's start out. Let's open our Excel spreadsheet, and of course I am Betty Baker. So I enable editing, and here I have a whole bunch of data. And whenever I have a whole bunch of data like this, I mean, look at all that data, 79 rows there. Whenever I have a lot of data like this, um, oftentimes in business, we want to sort it, we want to filter it, we're looking for key pieces of information. So I think this looks like a great place to apply my knowledge of tables. So I have the instructions, and to start off, it says freeze the top row so that the column labels do not scroll off the screen. So when I was in here a minute ago, I see my labels here at the top, and they scroll away. And so now I can't remember what is this number, what is going on, what are these numbers, right? So I want to go up to View, and I want to freeze panes, and I just want to freeze the top row. Okay, and you see that kind of line that shoots across there? It's just a shade darker now. And that's telling me that as I scroll, see how that's staying? I can go all the way down to row 79, and I can still see my wonderful labels at the top. So that's great. Okay, on to instruction number 2. Convert the data to a table and change the table name to Inventory 2021. Very important caution. Capitalization is important here. So notice that the beginning I is capitalized. Notice there are no spaces. Inventory 2021. So let's go over here to our table. Now, you don't always have to select the data. I like to select it. It gives me a chance also to show you some keyboard shortcuts. You already know that when you use the arrow keys, that you just move one cell. I'm pressing the arrows on my keyboard. But did you know that if you hold the Shift key down while you press your arrow keys, that it selects? Isn't that a very nice way, very controlled way to select, right? Now here's a very cool thing. Well, I'm going to, start at the beginning. I'll just go to row 5 here. And instead of holding Shift and arrow, 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 what if instead, and I'm just going to click to start again. What if instead I hold down my Shift key and I hold down my Control key and one time, just one time, press the arrow key? Did you see what it did? It searched for to the end of the data, and it selected everything. Now, if you're like me, sometimes you accidentally press it twice. I'm going to keep my Control and Shift key, keep my Control and Shift key held down, and I accidentally press it again. Woo! Where did it go? It went all the way to the end looking for more data, and it couldn't find it. So that's okay. You can Control Home or something like that, but if you know that you just arrowed one too many times, keep your Control and your Shift key held down and left arrow, because it will come back to the end of your data. So here's my point. These are just some tips and tricks. Arrows by themselves move you one cell. If you hold the Shift key down while you press the arrow key, you will select. If you use the Control key while pressing Shift, it will go to the end. That time I did a down arrow. It will go to the end of the data. And so here's the reason I do that. Let me get back up here. If I want to select all the information in this table, I'm going to click in cell A1. I'm going to Shift, and I'm going to Control, and I'm going to hit my right arrow. I'm keeping Control and Shift held down, and I'm pressing the right arrow one time. See how it jumped over? Now I want to go down. I want to select everything down, so keep the Control and Shift held down and press the down arrow key one time. See how it's selected everything? Now don't click, because that will unselect, but if you do, just select it again. Okay, I want to change this to a table, so I need to do that. Get my bearings here. I need to go to Insert, Table, and it says, is that the range? Is it correct? And yes, that's it. I see that it's absolute references there. It has correctly identified that my table has headers. That's correct. And I just simply click OK. There it goes. Now, so far so good, but I'm not done yet because it said that it wanted us to name the table Inventory 2021. With that table still selected, notice up here it shows the table name, Table 1. I'm just going to click. See how my mouse changes to an I-beam? I'm going to click. I'm going to delete that Table 1 out of there, and I'm going to type capital I, Inventory 2021, right? What do I do when I'm done? I press the Enter key. Now, this is what your table should look like at this point. I am going to save that. If you made a mistake, somehow you typed a wrong table name, or you only had part of the table selected when you named it, you may need to correct that name. And if you need to correct that name, you would go to Formulas, and you would click this button, Name Manager. And under the Name Manager, you will see anything that you have named, and we named our table. So you could then click Edit to correct that. I had to do that the first time I was looking at these instructions because I had a lowercase I, and it was marking me wrong. Okay, so I'm going to close that. The important thing here, we selected all this, we went to Insert, Table, we made that a table, and then it allowed us to change the name at that point. Okay, so let's continue on to our next step. It says Apply Table Style Medium 3 to the table. And it even tells us, note, depending on the version of Office, the table style name may be orange or table style medium 3. Well, we're looking for table style medium 3. So we have this selected, and we need to format this, and I've kind of clicked around here. Under Tables and Design, here's my styles. If I click this button right here, that will give me a bunch more styles, and it was in this medium group, and it was number 3, and as I hover over it I get the tooltip, Table Style Medium 3. I'm going to click that. I'm happy with that. If I'm happy with it, I click on Save. Back to my instructions. Now, sort the table by warehouse, A to Z, then by unit price, smallest to largest. Then I need to create a custom sort order. So I'm going to have 3 sorts going on. Wow. Okay. Luckily, I say, luckily you learned how to do a sort on multiple fields and create a custom sort in your simulator. This was all in the simulator. So you're applying that knowledge now. Okay, I'm just going to click someplace in my table. I don't need to have the whole thing selected. I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to look over here to Sort. Now, I'm going to click that button, and I'm going to look at my options. I don't want to do smallest to largest because that's only one sort, and I need to put 3 of them on there. So see where it says Custom Sort? And the instructions said that my first sort is to be by warehouse. So I come right here, and you learn this in the simulator. Now it does say A to Z. Okay, A to Z. And I need to add my next level. So then I'm going to sort by unit price. The instructions indicated smallest to largest. Got it. And then I need to make a custom sort. Okay, let me add a level. And if I correctly followed my simulator, department. I'm sorry, took my brain just a moment there. It's going to be based on department. Not A to Z, but on this custom list, let me show you the instructions that I'm looking at. It says create a custom sort for department. So that's the field or the column label. And we're going to sort by food and health, collars and leashes, toys, clothing, training, and grooming. Okay, a lot to remember. Department. Instead of A to Z, I'm going to have a custom list. New list is selected, and I'm going to click over here and see how it when I clicked, first of all, my arrow changed. It became an I-beam, and that always means I can click. So I just clicked, and now I'm going to type in my custom. My first one was food, ampersand, health. Everything has to be spelled exactly. When I get to the end, hit enter. Colors, ampersand, leashes. No commas. Hit enter. Do not need the commas. Toys, enter. Clothes, enter. Training, enter. Grooming. Now, I didn't hit enter after grooming. I'm just staying right there, but I am going to click on add. And see how see it listed here now? Click on OK. Where did my list go? I guess I'm sorry, I needed to click on that. I should have clicked on that. I apologize. Now I'm going to click on OK. Yeah, sorry about that. So department, by values, and I used custom list. I typed them in there, clicked on add, and now I've selected that. OK. Now this should change because we're going to sort by warehouse. See how it's all mixed up right now? We're going to sort by warehouse, by unit price, and by department. Boom! Got it. Save. All right, what is our next instruction? They do have a special note, by the way, to Mac users, so you'll want to check that out. Now I need to remove duplicate records from tables, and it says Excel should find more than one duplicate record. Folks, I use this all the time. This is so helpful. Go back to Excel. Okay, I've got my table selected. When I'm working with data, I go to Data, and let's see, one of my options here is Remove Duplicates. So you'll look for that option, click on that. Now it wants to understand how is it going to know that this is a duplicate. It might just be that they have the same inventory number. If that was true, you would unselect everything except for inventory. In our situation, a duplicate record is going to be something where each and every one of these fields is the same, right? So we're leaving them all selected. We're clicking on OK. And Excel says I found one duplicate and I removed it. So this might be in real life, you would want to save a copy before you did this, right? You'd always save a copy because it's going to delete values. And if they're for some reason not duplicates, maybe there are actually two Fred Smiths. That can happen. So we got to make sure that it actually was a duplicate. And we're left with 77 unique values. Click on OK. When I go back to my instructions, that it confirmed, removed one duplicate record. Uh-oh, here we go. Create an unqualified, what is unqualified? No row. No row. Structured reference, what is structured? Field name. In column G, to determine the value of the inventory on hand and apply the accounting number format. Now I say, what do they mean, the inventory on hand? Here, they're telling us right here. To calculate the inventory on hand, just multiply the unit price and the amount on hand. Okay, let's go back over here. They want us to put it here. And okay, so we're on step 7, and we're going to start with a formula. Well, how do we tell Excel? I need some math. Turn on the calculator, Excel. I'm going to type that equal sign. Right? And I want to multiply, and they're telling me the formula here, unit price, and that's this right here. But this is a field name. I'm not going to use any cells. I'm going to use field names, and field names go inside square brackets. And as soon as I typed that square bracket, it says, here's the fields. You don't even have to know them. I'm going to tell you what they are. And here it is right here, unit price. So I'm going to double click, I'm sorry. And I'm going to make sure and close my square bracket. And as soon as I close that square bracket, you can see that Excel is telling me I'm going to get this column right here, right? Yep, that's right. Then we know how to multiply, right? We know how to multiply. asterisk, and it said unit price times, we're on step 7, amount on hand. So that's going to be another field. That's my column label. So square bracket. There they are, amount on hand. Double click it. Don't forget, close the bracket. Always close the bracket. Now see how it has both of those? And you might be saying to yourself, but how does it know to use the correct amount on hand with the correct unit price? And it knows because they're relative in the same row. Even when we're not specifying the row, it knows to use those values that are side by side in the same row. They're related, and we talk about this as a relational database. Hit your enter key. Look at that. How exciting is that? And I noticed, okay, good. And I noticed, somewhat by accident, that I'm down here on row 51, but I didn't have to copy that formula. It filled it in throughout this entire column. Cool. It did that for me. Now, for the next final step of step 7, it says to apply the accounting number format. For that, I do want to make sure that I go to the top of my table. I'm going to click in cell G2. Let's go all the way up here to the top. And accounting format is familiar to you. You go to home. Up here in number, let's choose, they did say accounting, right? Can't remember. Yeah, accounting. Right, okay, now it only applied it to that first one. You could have selected the entire column and applied accounting format, nothing wrong with that at all. But since you're in a table, there's little perks to that. And one of them is, remember our fill handle here and how we go from puffy white plus sign to the magical, powerful, thin black plus sign. Not four-sided arrow, but magical, powerful, thin black plus sign. When I get into that configuration, if I just double click, got to keep your hand really still so it doesn't jump. If your hand jumps, you won't get it. It went ahead and applied that formatting to everything in that column. Again, if that's too much for you, just select everything, right? Remember, you can click and Control Shift down arrow. That would select everything. See how we're putting some of these things to use? So if you're feeling some of this is easy, I hope you're still learning. And then you could apply accounting. Okay? Lots of format, paintbrush, whatever, lots of techniques. So far so good. I'm going to click on save. And let's see, number 8, apply a row total to the inventory table and set the value to sum. Now, lots of ways to do this. I am a fan of right-clicking. I really am. You can go through and find your tabs, and your book tells you how to do that. But if I am in this inventory column and I right-click, I just right-click anywhere, then what I should see is, let's see, here's my table. And see how I have this option for totals row? That's just something that as you change, you might be using Excel from now till Excel 2030, Excel 2035, whatever. So rather than try to keep finding menus, just right click. Now, it added a total row, and notice it added it to the column that I was in. And they did say they wanted that to be a sum. Let me double check that. Apply a total row, set the value to sum, and that is the sum. Now it looks different, doesn't it? It looks different, subtotal, because this is a database feature. So our formulas are a little bit different. Our functions are a little bit different. But if I click on I clicked in the cell and it showed a drop-down arrow. Click the drop-down arrow. Just verify you're at sum. Okay. Now we're on step number 8, and it also wants us to go to the amount on hand, and it wants us to click in this total row, and it wants us to set this to average. Wow, what an average. It says format the results with 2 decimal points, and we're going to do that kind of as we usually would. I have that value selected, and I want to oops, I always go the wrong way. You can just do that. Or if you are more precise, you can click the little call out button under number. Keep it on number and just set that to 2. So there's always more than one way to do that, but I had it selected and I clicked the decrease decimal button until I was down to 2 decimal points. That completes step 8. Click on Save. Let's continue on. Step 9, create a new conditional formatting rule. Conditional formatting rule that displays any inventory value in column G for the food and health department with a value of $30,000 or more. How are we going to do this? Because it's 2 different fields. We need this inventory value and that to be of values. Don't we know a function that will do that? If this needs to be something and that needs to be something, we should learn that. Let me go back from our simulator. We also hopefully looked at that in the quiz. We started to investigate this function for conditional formatting, and you would even see that in, I'm sorry, I thought I had a picture of it in the video. They're going to show you how, oh, I did. This is from the video. In that hands-on video, they're going to show you how to do that. So it's not the exact same formula because we got to use our smarts here. We're going to use our smarts to say, I understand that we start with an equal sign. I understand that the function is and that all functions have parentheses. I understand that the comma separates the 2 things. In this case, the arguments. I need Fred and Harry to go to the store. This and that. So we're going to copy that. We're going to apply that to this. And this is, let's go back to our instructions. So any value in inventory value, and that's in column G, and we need for that to be food and health with a value of 30,000 or more. Now, I'm going to kind of pull up my imaginary whiteboard. This is something that's built into Windows, and it just makes it easier in my videos. Don't look at anything. Let's pretend this is a gigantic whiteboard, and let's just think through this formula. And maybe just to even simplify it, I might even start out looking at just one row, pretending this is not even a table, right? Because we don't have to use all the fields and field names and worry about structured and qualified and unqualified. If we were just working with fields in one row, I think what we're trying to say is that if the value in cell D2, I can use, it bothers me not, capitalization doesn't matter. If the value in cell D2 is equal to some value like, what was it, food and health, and it'd have to be exact, food and, I'm sorry, I have to spell it exactly, food and health, then I want to select it. But let me use my air quotes. I said, air quotes, food and health is the value. It's the text value. So we said whenever we are speaking that this is the exact label, not a number, but a text label, we have to have quotes around it. So if in D2 it said food and health, and then over here in G2, put that down here, G2, if that value was greater than, and the instruction said 30,000, so that's 30, 1, 2, 3, that makes 30,000. If both those 2 things are true, according to our instructions, then we would want this red fill color on the cell to fill it in red. Okay, so if we want this and that to be true, right? And we know this and function has an open parenthesis, and we have to have a closing parenthesis. Now, this is obviously not all put together yet because we're just thinking through the components. We know here's condition 1, Fred has to go to the grocery store. Here's condition 2, and Harry has to go to the grocery store. They both have to go together, this and that. But we want Excel to look at this and kind of do the math. And whenever we want Excel to do the math, that's another thing that we have to have, is that equal sign at the very beginning to turn it all on. Now, whenever we have two things, this and that, we have two arguments, they have to be separated by a comma. Okay? Now, that's how we would do it if it was just one row. Let's just stop for a moment and think about some things that we've learned. Okay, if we put it all together, we'd have equal, because we got to tell Excel, we got to use math. We tell Excel, we just learned a function, and that function is and all functions have parentheses immediately after the word, no space. And then we tell it, here's your first thing, and here's a comma to separate. Here's the second thing, and then we know we have to close with a parenthesis. Now here's a real critical thing. It's important to take the time to write this out. I'm going to select these cells because we're going to apply conditional formatting. I've clicked the first cell. I'm going to use one of my new tricks, Control Shift, and press the down arrow. As I do that, I kind of select, it's probably no big deal, but well, it would be actually, if we select one cell too many, but I don't want to do that. So let up off the Control key. If you've let up off Shift, that's okay. Push the Shift key down and arrow up one time. Okay? So you did your shortcut, Control Shift down arrow, and it selected all the data in that column. It was one piece too many, so you kept the Shift key held down and arrowed up one time. Now I'm going to go to conditional formatting. Let's see. I can't use these things because these apply to just one cell. Format it if this cell is greater than a certain amount. Format it if it's less than. None of these really work. What I learned through the videos and through my reading is I need to create a new rule. As I read through this, let's see, what is that new rule going to be? Format all the cells based on their values? No, I'm not trying to format based on their values. I got two different things. Format only cells that contain a certain value? Well, no, because again, I've got two different columns that I'm looking at. Format only top and bottom ranked values. No. Format only values that are based above. No. Format only unique or duplicated values. Well, first of all, that's a cool thing to know if you were just trying to find those duplicated values. But no. Use a formula to determine which cells to format. Now, we've already typed that, and I copied it, and so I am going to paste. Does that look right? I hope so. Not done yet. I need to format. And they told me a lot of times you'll open up to font, and you can change so many things, but I want to change the fill to red, and that means the background color of my cell, as demonstrated in the sample, will be red. Okay. Okay, fingers crossed. Okay. Well, what just happened? I'm going to look. This is in the Department of Food and Health. Can I make it bigger there? And it's above 31,000. It would be, if the human eye, we are just not accurate enough to find it every time. Imagine you're looking through 5,000 records. Oh, you would make mistakes. You know, you might miss one. Look how that red just makes it jump out, and I can easily find it. Right? Excellent. Okay, gosh, woo! Wipe the sweat off your brow. That was a tough one, but we've used what we've learned, and we successfully completed that task. Now, the next thing we're going to do, step 10, ensure the warehouse information is not broken up between pages when printed, and add a page break to make sure that that each warehouse is on its own consecutive page. Okay, so what they're talking about is, you know, they want we did such a nice job of sorting this warehouse, and they want Denver to be its own kind of report that we could pull those pages and give those to somebody. And then the next warehouse, Memphis, those would all be, it wouldn't all run together and we wouldn't be having to use scissors to cut people to give them their section of the report, right? We don't want to do that. We want to control where the page breaks. So in Excel, down towards the bottom, there is Page Break Preview. Click on Page Break Preview. Okay. In this page break preview, first of all, we can kind of see our data is too big. We've got this column that's column G is not going to fit on the page. Oh, that's terrible. So we're in portrait right now. We might be told in the next step to change that, right? And these dashed lines means I've run out of paper, and that's where the page is going to naturally break. And if I made this bigger for you, you would see that the page is naturally going to break, and I'm going to have two Potomac warehouses with the Memphis stuff, and I don't want that. And Denver is going to be combined with Memphis, and I don't want to do that. So what they are telling me is that I should find Memphis, and if I move my mouse, now not in the row, on top of the row number. See how I've got it on top of the row number? And now I have a sideways pointing arrow. Right click, insert page break. When I click away, do you see the solid blue line? Now, if you clicked on Denver, this might be in the wrong place. If so, you can drag these. You want to make sure that Denver is on one page and Memphis is on another. I'm going to scroll on down, and here I see we go from Memphis to Potomac. So I'm going to click on top of row 46. I'm going to right click. Mouse on top, right click. Not insert, but insert page break. Not this, but insert page break. Click away, and you can see the break. If it's in the wrong spot, just drag it into the correct spot. Now I see San Diego. Put my mouse on top of the row. Right click. Not insert, but insert page break. When you see this little shadowy, like page 4, that is a reference to you. It does not print. It's like in Word we learned about non-printable characters, that just they're display only to let you know when there's a paragraph. That's exactly what this is. This is just for your formatting reference. Now, you may still say, but wait a minute, we've got this extra stuff hanging off over here. Well, that's okay, because right here it says that we need to set the worksheet to landscape, orientation, and repeat row 1 labels on the page. Okay, so first of all, let's do the easy part. Let's change to landscape. Page layout, orientation, landscape. Hey, that looks great. Now it all fits. All right? But what else did they tell us to do? They said that we need to make sure, see how nice this is, that we have this row 1 labels, and that as we scroll down, we keep those labels. Well, when we print, that's not automatic. This is only for our viewing that we freeze the row. If we want to print, then under page layout, across from orientation here, print titles. Multiple tabs. This is where your header footer is, margins, all kinds of things. We are on this last tab, the Sheet tab. And here it says, what print titles do you want? What labels do you want to repeat? Well, I want this row to repeat, so I'm going to click here where it says row. And I'm just going to click in the row. And I don't even have to put a column reference in there. It would screw it up if I did. It says, oh, you want row 1 to repeat? Yeah. If I wanted multiple, I would just drag over multiple rows. Click OK. Now, they did tell us to print preview it, which I could have done. Maybe I can do that now. How about File, Print? And this way I get, I'm just going to preview it like this. and all my Denver warehouses. If I change pages, all my Memphis, Potomac, looking good. Got my total. All right, but I'm not done yet. I'm tempted to say, yay, I'm done, but I've got an extra step. I'm going to create a footer. On the left side, I'm going to put my name. In the center, I'm going to put the sheet name, and on the right, I'm going to put the file name. Okay? All right, let's go back. And, I can change views back to my regular view, but remember a minute ago when I clicked on Print Titles, I was on the Sheet tab. Well, here's my Header Footer tab. There's multiple ways to get to the same information. In previous chapters, we've learned to create a custom footer. Remember, I am my test student, Betty Baker. And in the center, it said to put the sheet name, and we've done this in previous chapters. And in the right section, I believe it said to put the file name. Click OK. It might look a little funny in the preview. Don't let that bother you. It said to preview it, so I clicked that button. See how it looks much better in the actual print preview? And I feel like I've done a good job, so I'm going to save. The one thing I'm going to double check is it did say name, and then it said sheet, and then it did say file name. Okay. Now it tells me I can close it and submit. So let me go ahead and save, and I am going to close. And over here in my IT lab, I don't need to download again. I'm just going to pick my file. And it makes me nervous. I'm sure it does you. I've got my fingers crossed that I did everything correctly. I upload, success, and drum roll, submit for grading, close assignment, and then you have the all-important wait. Yay! We got 100%. We got our perfect score. Now, why was that? It's because we took the time to do the quiz. I understand my simulation is still in progress, but we went through, we did the simulation, and we learned from that, and then we took that knowledge and we applied it to the grader. And at any time, I can go into my textbook. I am going to show you this briefly, and I hope you're staying with me. I know this is a long video, but I really think this is important. In my book, the 3 bars over here, I know that I'm in Excel for, there you remember the previous chapters. Here's data sets and tables, and I'm just clicking that to show you. Okay, I'm going to close this little panel. And here's the objectives. Now, I can look through things like this and see how these are clickable. See how they're hyperlinks when I move my mouse over them? Everything from those page breaks we just did, how to do that, the benefits of tables, how do we do those tables, how do we remove duplicate rows? Well, I can find out how to do that in Objective 4. I just click on that, it'll take me to that part of the book. I'm going to go a little bit further. Here's hands-on exercise 2, but remember hands-on exercise 3 is where we had that video that showed us how to do everything, create a custom sort. It showed us how to, I think, was that the one with, no, conditional formatting is further on, but this is where the videos are. So let me kind of go down a little bit further here, aggregate, data, here's add total rows, here's that conditional formatting, hands-on exercise 4. So I could look at that video, but do you see how, this is grouping the data so I can find it? And I'm going to click on hands-on exercise 4. I thought, what was I? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what hands-on exercise 3 was all about? It was all about the structured data. And if I needed to read or better understand, or perhaps I need to review the structured data, I'm going to do this real quick. Objective 6. See how I clicked on that? Hands-on exercise 3, that's what we were talking about. And this is exactly the slides that I was showing you earlier. And now I can see that. See how extremely fast this ebook is? This would take you forever with a printed book. Okay, so you want to learn how to use this. But if I go down here, this also you cannot get out of a printed book. I don't know how to do this conditional formatting, so hands-on exercise 4. And it takes, my computer's very slow, my internet is slow. I apologize, it takes a little while. But here is this video, and in this video, I'm obviously not going to play, but it's only 5.5 minutes, folks, as compared to your instructor doing.
Vicki Reed wants to review the transactions with you.
Well, then we'll do that. Look, there's that formula. Walked right through it, no mistakes. I wish I could say the same. I can't say the same, but I can copy their work. I can say it's not exact copy. I have to apply my smarts to it, and I have to say, okay, in my situation, I should put this, and in my situation, I should put that. But you've got it right there, folks, right there. Okay, so use that. Use this wonderful book and use it in this quick way to go right to the information that you need. Okay, I'm going to close that book. So this is how you get 100%. I know you can get 100% if you'll watch this video. Number one thing people don't do, they skip the video and they email the instructor. I don't know how to do it, but you're ahead of the curve because you watched the video. Thank you, folks. I appreciate you so much.